Welcome to the Box Score Sports Podcast.
But I see where he's going with it. Okay, let's go to the Clippers. So I picked the Clippers. Okay. Obviously, we got to fix the Clippers because right now they are inconsistent. I don't know. Have you watched many of the Clippers games?
Yeah, I have. I've been keeping an eye on them.
Yeah,
Paul George hit that clutch three
that
to
was
win it.
amazing.
That was good.
Yeah.
I think it's still too early though, Ryan. I don't think they got to blow it up just yet. If they stay like this by the trade deadline, I was talking to Luke about this, and then you try to trade Paul George or something. Like if there's a major injury, like if Kawhi, God forbid, gets hurt or whatever, then I just say you just blow it up because I don't think the Clippers can go through another year again with one of these guys getting hurt all year.
Yeah. So what? Yeah, what I'm talking about with the Clippers, though, I'm not saying let's blow it up. I want to fix them. I want to make them legitimate contenders. So it's a little different of an angle. So that's why I like doing these things more general because me and you look at it like a little differently. We get to put our own spin on it.
Okay.
So what I'm talking about here is not blowing it up. I want to fix their team. What is it that they need to do to be legitimate contenders in the West? So what I have written down, because here's the problem. They haven't played PJ Tucker. I don't know if you know this, but they haven't really played PJ Tucker the last couple games. He's been getting no minutes, which is for a team that isn't very deep right now, is not like super great, right? So they do need size. They need forwards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what can they do? Well, here's what they have available to them. Zoo can be traded once Plumlee comes back because they got Daniel Tice, they got Mason Plumlee, so Zoo could be an option. They still have their 2030 first round pick that they could trade. And honestly, as much as I love him, Norman Powell could be traded as well.
Okay.
And if I am the Clippers, that is what I look to do is I want to get a forward or two. And I'm going to look at trading Norm Powell
for picks or for another player that you got an eye on.
Players.
Okay,
yeah.
and
So
who do you think could come in and fill that role for their depth?
Yeah. So two players on one team could help. I have Dorian Finney-Smith and Royce O'Neal from the Nets. For something like Norman Powell and that unprotected 2030 pick.
Okay.
And if they could get that,
you think that fixes their problems?
Yes, because they don't have forwards anymore. Okay. And both those guys are 3-and-D guys. And that's what I think the Clippers need in order to
because they got rid of Covington and everybody to the Sixers is what you're saying. Batum I see what you're saying. But
it also would open up the spot for Bones Highland to get minutes.
Sure, that's true.
And that's the other thing. So if let's say they made a trade for to get rid of Powell, and that sounds bad. He's still a really good player.
He is.
But if you trade away Powell, you open up minutes for Bones, who was averaging 16 points a game before the trade. And then you get in two forwards like a Finney-Smith and an O'Neal, or like Luke really wants Jonathan Isaac from the Magic. So even if you get someone like him, it allows your roster to be more adaptable, and you can play bigger and you can play a little smaller, but bigger. And you can also have those 3-and-D guys that don't need the ball. That's the thing. Norman Powell, in order to do what he does, what he's great at, he needs the ball. But so does James Harden. So does Kawhi Leonard. So does Paul.
Well, that's
George,
what I'm saying.
So does Westbrook.
Right. You're looking for role players, is what you're saying, to get that depth going.
And not necessarily scorers, right? Like role players that don't need the ball to be effective.
Sure, but is that fixing this team? Because right now we're looking at the Clippers as as a contender, right? To win the championship. Right. Do you really think even that helps them go to the finals, though? I don't really think so. I think whatever. I get what you're saying. They lost a lot of depth with the James Harden trade. But I'm just saying, if they don't get it, if these stars don't get it together, and that's what I'm saying, I think it's just too early to talk about the Clippers right now. If they don't got nothing going, then you make these trades like right before the trade deadline. But right now, it's still too early. I think they could still figure it out with what they have now. Mason Plumlee is hurt, and I understand that hurts. So if Mason Plumlee comes back, you don't really got to make any drastic decisions right now unless these main guys don't get it together. And Westbrook's already coming off the bench, which was a huge leadership role because man, that you got to swallow a lot of ego for that to give up a starting position because Westbrook was there before James Harden, and I think we touched based on this before, Ryan. But if if these stars don't click, man, you got to get Paul George is wasting his career in LA right now. So if somebody gets hurt or whatever, I just think Paul George just got to dip out. I don't think there's anything really that could really drastically fix this team that's going to make them a contender because that's what we're talking about when we talk about the Clippers. We're talking about NBA championships. Isn't that the reason why Kawhi and Paul George went to LA was to battle LeBron and AD? LeBron and AD and the Lakers are the only ones in LA that got a championship, even though granted it was in the bubble. But the Clippers are all about championships. I don't think really it all starts. They got the James Harden trade. We're talking about this team going to the championship to come out of the West. If these guys don't get it together, man, it's just
right. So in order for them to get it together, though, you have to have the right roster around them, right? And so what is needed, right? So like the first step for me is you got to get 3-and-D guys willing to sit and shoot. Like PJ Tucker, the reason why he's not getting any minutes is because he doesn't shoot the ball. He plays really good defense, but he'll get an open three and pass it up every single time. And so I need guys around Westbrook who are going to be willing to shoot the ball. James Harden, who are going to be willing to shoot the ball. The problem with Norman Powell is he is like a shot creator. So the only way to have him be in the most effective position is with the ball in his hands. Well, you don't want the ball in his hands over Westbrook, Paul George, Leonard, or Harden, right? So now you just have 5 guys who needs the ball a lot of the time. So my thing is like, you're right. You got to get those 3 guys going. Harden, LeBron. I mean, not LeBron. Harden, Paul George, and Kawhi.
Right.
But the only way to best get them going is putting them in the best
you're saying get role players that just know their role to just play their role. There's not a lot of ego. But really, is Norman Powell, I get he's a good player, but Norman Powell should just be a role player. Like, why is his ego so up? You know what I'm saying? So it's like...
No, but like... He's like a 6th man that comes on the bench. His best role is to put up 20 points off the bench, right?
Right.
That's his best role. He's good with that role. But the problem is he needs the ball to put 20 points on the bench, off the bench, right?
Yeah, so, it's just a lot of ego, bro. And I told Luke about this. Granted, it's still too early. It's still early in the season. We didn't even pass Christmas yet. So. I just think it's still too early yet. But yes, if they don't get it together, though, I just think the James Harden move is what killed this team. Let's just be real. They didn't trade. They had it. Robert Covington, everybody, Batum. They didn't need James Harden at all. I think James Harden, if we want to have an overreaction right away, right now, they got to get rid of James Harden.
They're not getting anything for him.
No, they're not. And that's what I'm saying. It's like... you're a Clippers fan, you gotta just roll. You gotta, roll with what you wanted, man. Like it's, either ride or die with it.
Right. I get where you're coming from. You got to get but for me, it's like the same situation with Cade. You want Cade to be the best version of Cade. You got to put the pieces around Cade to make it work. You got these 4 guys. You got to get to work. Let's see what they can do if you put the right pieces around him. And even with Zoo, he's been playing better. But the problem with him and James Harden as a pairing, or even those 4 guys all together, even him and Russ in a sense, those guys need athletic rim running centers. They need Clint Capella. They need, that sharp guy in Brooklyn, or Embiid worked really well. He's not necessarily a rim runner, but he could shoot anywhere on the floor. So like the other option or the other thing they kind of need is a rim running center. So Plumlee can kind of be that guy. Tice is not that type of guy. But what Tice does is he provides floor spacing when he's on the floor.
Right.
So like
But
those
what
are
I
the two
but what I'm
styles of
saying,
centers.
but where I'm seeing where you're going with this, Ryan, is you're saying the Clippers got to adapt to James Harden, not so much Paul George and Kawhi,
No.
because Paul George and Kawhi were fine. You know what I'm saying? So it's like you're trying to fix this team to build around James Harden. Like James Harden said, he is the system. So everybody's trying to follow James Harden's style of play for this to work out, which is totally absurd. You know what I'm saying? So it's either
except that. Well, no, I've been telling Luke that they needed especially a floor spacing center forever, because like Paul George gets into the lane every time, and if there's a big guy down there, it's harder for him to score. Could you imagine if he had floor spacing? Like nobody would be able to stop him. Like they've needed that for a long time. The problem
Right.
isn't necessarily just James Harden. It's the fact that they traded the role players they needed for this
They were
team
fine,
to
bro.
get James Harden.
Right.
I'm with you. But
And
like,
that's what I'm
you
saying.
traded Covington and Batum when
Yeah.
in reality they should have just traded Norm Powell. If they
Right.
would have traded Norm Powell, I think this team would look a lot
But
better.
bro, I'm gonna be completely honest with you. The Clippers try and get more desperate to try and get more pieces. What you're saying, I still don't think that this in my opinion, you could be making it worse. Honestly,
it can't get much worse though, right? Like,
it could be. It could be. That's what I'm saying. Like, do you really risk that to and mess this up where? If they just roll with like what I'm saying, that's why I'm saying it's too early right now. You know what I'm saying? But I guess what you're trying to say is like what you just said, it can't get much worse, but it could. It could just blow up. Where I feel as though Paul George and it is starting to come around now as far as clicking with James Harden, both of them on the floor, but that's what I'm saying. If you keep touching it too much, you know what I'm saying? Like what they did with the whole James Harden thing, I think they didn't need that. Going to get desperate, and if you get more desperate, you could make it worse. That's the only fear of that.
Right, and I don't know how desperate it would be to go after two wings or a wing, right? Like that, they do need one.
But who are you giving up to get those guys? You're saying Norman Powell and somebody else? You're saying like Zubac?
Like. Right, like Norm Powell in your 2030 first round. You can protect it, top 10 protect it probably.
Sure.
Depending on who you go after. You might have to leave it unprotected if you get those two wings.
Yeah.
But my point is you already dived, you're already in the deep end. You got to just put the best roster available around these guys. You should never have Paul George out there with three non-shooters.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get shooters now. You got to get people who are willing to play 3-and-D. There was times when it was like Paul George with Westbrook, Zoo, and PJ Tucker. You can't do that to nobody's going to guard PJ Tucker and Westbrook at the 3, and then that means all the pressure is on Paul George. So you got to get it to where like you have a good roster around them that makes sense. Let Russ attack the basket. Let Harden attack the basket. Paul George with spacing. Kawhi Leonard with spacing. That's the way I'd. And I've been telling Luke this even before the Harden trade.
But I don't
spacing
think,
for those guys.
But that's what I'm saying. It's like you really think these teams like the Magic who got a good roster, you think they're gonna give up Jonathan Isaac to go to the Clippers for Norman Powell or Zubac? No, And some of these teams,
the 2030 pick is the asset that they'll want, right? Because that's going to look really good. They don't got any.
I don't think
picks.
any of these teams that you're saying that are good, that are in playoff contention, I don't think they risk to mess up. They don't want to end up like the Clippers. The Clippers were good. They didn't have to touch anything. The Magic are good. They don't got to touch anything. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
I guess
the one thing that the Magic need though is scoring. They need scoring. Like they don't have that great of an offense right now. Right, their defense is high end, right? But they do need scoring.
I don't know that against the Boston Celtics, they looked like they could score that ball, man. They were. Whew.
Well, so did the Pacers. Like, I mean, like, what do you want?
Yeah, the Pacers. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Me personally, I just feel like they just got to get it together, man. You guys wanted James Harden, now figure it out. Figure it out.
Well, and I think
people need to stop having egos. You guys are professional NBA players. Get it together.
Yeah.
James
Yeah, no,
Harden, you got 4 all-stars on this team. Like, come on, I'm not trying to give the Clippers no more excuses. This don't work. If they still suck by the free agency or by the trade deadline, blow it up. Get rid of Paul George. Paul George needs to go. I'm sorry. This needs to go. I demand a trade if I'm Paul George. Get out of there.
Maybe
Get out of that system.
Be a fun podcast topic, like a PG. where would you like to see PG go?
We gotta have Luke
like
on the. If we're talking about Paul George, we gotta get Luke on the podcast. Get his
trade Russ to the Pels. Yeah, I don't know what they'd get for Russ. That's the problem. Yeah. Although the Pelicans have a lot of assets, like not a lot of assets. They got a lot of good wing players. I should say, like Dyson Daniels isn't getting minutes. Like, yeah. It would be fun to see Paul George on like the Thunder or the Cavaliers or even the Pacers. Like,
Paul George, yeah.
CG isn't working.
Oh, yeah. McCollum. Get McCollum on the Clippers. That's another ball handle. That's another ball dominant guy.
But see, like he's a good catch and shooter as well. Like he's not like he can be a shot creator, but he's not always a shot creator. Does that make sense? So that would help them a little bit. But I'm with you on that. I want the Clippers, if they're gonna fix their problem, they need to get wings. That's the problem they have right now. But it's not. I'm with you. No excuses or anything. But if you're gonna be this far into it, you have to put the best team around these 4 guys.
So you're saying so what you're saying, Ryan, in this debate is you're saying you're already struggling. Might as well just keep risking it. Is what you're saying?
I'm saying you're not. I don't want to say struggling. You're already this far deep into it.
Okay.
You like the one thing that people don't think about is in this offseason, both Kawhi. All 3 of Kawhi, Paul George, and Harden are all free agents after this season.
Right.
If they want their money, they're going to do sign and trades with the Clippers. So Clippers will get assets for them. I don't know what those assets will look like, but they will get something for them. So they could potentially find a way to have a little bit of a rebuild if those 3 guys don't want to sign.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying with the Clippers as far as the risk. Are you willing to risk? You're saying getting more assets around these guys when we don't even know if they're going to be here next year.
Right. The only real asset you're getting rid of, though, if is your 2030 pick.
Yeah.
And I mean, at this point, what's the deal with that? Like, it's not a big deal. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal at this point to me. It's like that's 6 years down the road, and you've already you invested so much into this team already. You might as well just go all in, put the chips in, and then see what happens. That's what I mean. Like, put the right team around these guys. That's all I'm saying. But I also understand your point. Enough excuses. Like it's you guys got to figure this out. I'm with you on that. Mm-hmm. We spent a lot of time on that one.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so we are running out of time. I would like to talk about the 2 other teams I was going to bring up. It's the Warriors and Knicks, but we'll have to table those 2 for now. Thanks so much for watching this clip of the Box Score Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter or X. And we'll talk to you guys real soon. See ya.